What's up, guys? It's Brent with Lykins Motorsports. As you can see, I'm not putting an oil pan on, so UPS did not come yesterday as they said that they would. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to work on the intake manifold a little bit. We got all these factory studs in here that have to be popped out. And that's easy to do if you just double nut them. But I'm going to show you what the carburetors look like and what the my hands are numb. I just got through shoveling the driveway, so this may not go as quickly as what I'm wanting it to go. But show you what the carb studs look like and the spacers we're going to use. We're going to use some phenolic spacers. Road race engines tend to build a lot of heat, so that's why we don't run a ton of compression and all that stuff. So we want to keep the heat out of the carburetors, out of the intake as much as we can. And I'll show you Mr. Drew's carburetors that he built for us. Alright, I got all those removed. We're going to install our ARP studs. They're available in pretty much any length that you want. These are made for a 1-inch carb spacer. You can get them for a 2-inch or on up. And I like the ARP stuff when it's not too expensive. It's pretty much necessary for internal parts, main cap fasteners, rod bolts, head bolts, that sort of thing. Maybe a cam bolt. But you have to weigh the use against the price for... I've lost a stud. Alright, hold on a minute. Anyway, so you have to weigh the benefits versus the cost. These are nice because, the factory studs are usually worn out, stripped out. These are bull-nosed so you can get the nut started down easy. We're going to be looking at using these Canton phenolic open spacers. They fit really well. And probably try some other things on the dyno, but I kind of want to stay with these phenolic spacers just to keep the heat out of everything. Road race engines, as I was mentioning a minute ago, tend to build a lot of heat, keep heat, and we want to combat that. So we're using these Canton spacers. These things aren't cheap, but they work well for the purpose. We get this other spacer on here, and I'll show you the carburetors. Drew does very nice work on recoloring and rebuilding all these carburetors. And if you notice, raise your hand if you see something a little bit different. We got annular boosters and down leg boosters. So for the annular booster, helps a little bit of low end engine response, which is good for a road race motor. You don't want it to lag or bog. So because of the different boosters that are used, Drew said these carbs will come in between 715 and 725 CFM. So you don't double when you have two carburetors. You don't double the CFM. It's more like times 1.5. So if we're at 725 for each carburetor, we're going to be just a little bit above 1,000 CFM for the entire package. Vacuum secondaries, and we'll put a hose on those to equalize the the vacuum between the two carburetors, but this is what we're looking at. So I'm used to doing so many FE 2x4 stuff that, you know, we have to mount the carburetors on backwards. These are mounted in traditional 2x4 fashion, and there's just a little simple linkage that goes in between, and then your throttle cable hooks to both and opens both. So there we go. A very nice looking combination. All right, we're going to get to the part of the video that's titled. So just want to go over, get a lot of questions about the best way to run valve lash, or the best way to set lifter preload. Probably won't get into a lifter preload today because the difference between a hydraulic cam and a solid cam are completely different. And you know what I'm about to show you, you'll see a difference in a couple 3/1000ths. And if we were adjusting preload on a hydraulic lifter, a couple 3/1000ths doesn't really make a bit of difference, unless it's a highly specific, you know, race motor with a, you know, say all aluminum engine, and the lifters are limited travel, something like that. But you know, that's kind of a rarity. But in a solid cam motor, where you can basically adjust the parameters of the running engine with a lash, it's pretty important that you get it the same and you get it to exactly what you want it to be. So there are two major methods of setting the valve lash, and the first one is what I just call the EOIC method. So exhaust open, intake close. And basically that tells you that you set the intake lash when the exhaust valve is starting to open, and you set the exhaust lash when the intake valve is starting to close, or almost. So that's the first one. The second one is the top dead center method. I've heard a lot of guys use that method, and you'll probably see a lot of arguments out there about that. So what I'm going to show you in this video is just the differences and the pluses and the minuses of the two. I'm going to go ahead and set our number one intake rocker with the Evo method. So we're going to roll this engine over until that exhaust valve is starting to open. Like that. So let's think about where the engine is when this is happening. So when this valve is opening, the piston is probably due to blowdown. It's probably, I don't know, starting halfway down. I'm just in generality here, starting down the bore. And it's getting ready to come back up. So when it does come back up, there's no way that this valve is going to be open. Otherwise, you get some horrible reversion. So we know that when this valve opens, this valve has to be closed. So our valve lash for this engine is 16/1000ths. And I set my lash pretty tight, so we got a good feel on that. So we'll try it with the top dead center method. Now, the top dead center method, you can really mess yourself up. And here's why. I'll give you a couple of reasons, and one right now and one a little bit later, why I don't like the top dead center method. It's because if you imagine this engine now with all the spark plugs in it, headers are on it, intake is on it, it's in the heat of battle. If you're on the racetrack, you have to go through a lot more motion to ensure that when you're on top dead center, it's on the compression stroke, not on the exhaust stroke. So let's see what happens when we are on top dead center of the exhaust stroke. So our exhaust valve is opening. It's going to close. And I'm looking at my balancer right now, and I want to come up on top dead center. Alright. So our exhaust valve is at top dead center. I can't even get a feeler gauge in here. And it's because of the overlap of the cam. So if you noticed, when this valve was closing, even though my balancer says top dead center, this valve was open and this valve was open. So if you set your valve lash there, you'd have a big error on your hands. Let's go through that again. I'll show you. Alright, so that exhaust valve is open. It's closing. Watch this intake valve. See it? It's already moving. That's because of the overlap in the cam lobes. So even though my balancer shows that I'm at top dead center right now, this is open and that's open. Alright, so let's try it at top dead center of the compression stroke. So our intake, there's a hair sticking up. Intake valve is opening. It is closing. And I'm going to go to top dead center. If you're on top dead center of the compression stroke, you can pretty much guarantee that your valves will be shut, right? If not, you're in trouble. All right, so I get the same feel as I did with the EOIC method. The issue is that it's a lot more involved to set them using the top dead center compression stroke method. First of all, you have to ensure that you're for sure on the compression stroke, not on the exhaust stroke. The second thing is that most guys do this, and what they do is they go every 90 degrees in firing order. So small block Ford is 1, 3, 7, 2, 6, 5, 4, 8. So I'm at 0 degrees. I'm at top dead center right now. I set this one, and I set this one, and then I go 90 degrees, and I set these guys. So to do that, your balancer has to be marked. Not all balancers are marked every 90 degrees. The second thing is that you have to be really careful on stopping every 90 degrees. So if you're at the racetrack, maybe you've got a starter button that you're running, turning the engine over while you're looking over looking into the hood. And it's going to be pretty much impossible to stop it every 90 degrees right on the money. So, that's one drawback right there. Let me show you how quick. So with the EOIC method, it doesn't matter. You don't have to make sure which ones are on. If you're on the compression stroke or on the exhaust stroke, you don't have to pay attention to the balancer. You don't have to do any of that. So if I were leaning over the hood and I had a starter button and I'm just rolling the engine over, and I'm rolling through here, exhaust valve is opening, I know I checked that valve. And then intake valve is closing, I can check that valve. I'm leaning over the front, so I don't know where I am. There we go. Go to this one. Intake valve is closing. Boom, I can check that one. Exhaust valve is opening. I can check this one. Same deal. Alright, so you can see how quickly that would be You can roll through there with your starter switch. You don't have to pay attention to the balancer. You don't have to pay attention to whether you're on the compression stroke or on exhaust stroke. So very quickly to do it like that. That's why most engine builders that I know prefer it this way. You can literally just blow through this very quickly on if engine's in the car or on the dyno. If I'm on the dyno, there's a switch right here where I can bump the engine over. I can literally roll through this in just a few seconds. So we'll do a recap. 2 methods: EOIC, TDC. If you're on TDC of the exhaust, you've done messed up. If you're on TDC of the compression stroke, most likely you'll not have any problems, but you have to go through a lot more rigmarole to get it done. All right. So UPS did not show up. We were waiting on our oil pan still, and I'm just trying to stay busy in the shop today and answering emails, answering phone, and just rolling through engine stuff. So hope you're having a good weekend. I've already been outside shoveling snow again. It's been my life story this week, shoveling snow and ice. So hope you guys are staying warm out there. This is Brent with Lykins Motorsports. Y'all take care.